Hey, thanks for watching. We're going to be super quick. This is not going to be long, but I want to talk for just a minute about idolatry. Please don't stop watching. I know, it sounds boring, but I promise that at some point you're going to say, this has something to do with my life. Or, well, you'll think it. I doubt you'll say that out loud. Okay, so we're going to start with the Bible because otherwise there's no point to this. It's Exodus 32. And I'm reading from the NASB. You can read whatever version that you want to. It's the story of the golden calf. Now, what has been happening before this happened, because you always got to have context. Like, for real, you really do. Don't skip that. Moses has gone up onto the mountain to get the Torah, the written law, Genesis basically through Deuteronomy. He's gone up to get that information from God. And he's taking a while, and the people are kind of freaking out. And so they say, now when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people assembled about Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who will go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has become of him." And see, that's where, right there, that's when an idol is going to come into your life. You see, what's going to happen is there will be circumstances in your life where you're going to feel like you don't know what God's doing, because you aren't always going to know what God's doing. He is almost annoying that way. I really can't say he's annoying because he's God, but it's very frustrating. And we don't know what's going on. But those are the moments where you have an opportunity to trust, or Satan is just waiting there on the sideline saying, "Oh, aren't you disappointed? You poor, poor thing. God has failed you. You need to put your trust in something else." And he is just a big fat turd face. I'm sorry for using that word. That probably offended people. He's a jerk. Don't listen to him. He's stupid. Okay. But that's what happens. You have a failed expectation, and your heart is feeling a little sad, and you don't know what's going on. You're not in the know. And guess what? That's when you think, I need something to put my trust in. What am I going to do? So, the second thing that we notice is that Aaron says to them, "Tear off the gold rings that are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." It's kind of creepy that he says tear them off, but I'm sure he meant just take them out. Then all the people tore off, there it is again, the gold rings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. Okay, here's the thing. When you do get an idol, something after a failed expectation or disappointment, when you don't know what's going on, and you have an idol, something you want to put your trust in instead of God, it will be costly. It will be expensive. You know why these rings, and I know some people are like, well, it's just jewelry, it's just money. This wasn't just money for these people, okay? You know who thinks things like that? People who get money easily. So a lot of us in the United States, that's for sure. But no, you know, when you got your first job, your first paper route, your first anything, and you worked so hard for that money meant something because you worked really hard. The children of Israel were treated so poorly. They were slaves. They had no rights. They had nothing. And when they left Egypt, they left wealthy because God had said to their neighbors, you know, he had inspired them to give the children of Israel what they had earned with their hard work, with their pain and their suffering. That was not just God robbing the Egyptians blind. That was money that they should have had. And now they are throwing it away. All of those years of pain, suffering, everything that they earned, it's gone. So, you know, when an idol comes into your life, it will be costly. It will be personal. It will be precious. And it will be expensive, what it asks of you. And it could be monetarily expensive, but it could also be, it could cost you your family. It could cost you a precious relationship. It could cost you your standing in the community. It could cost you your reputation. It could cost you your good name. So many things that are precious, that you've worked hard on, that you've earned, that God has given you. You're going to throw it away for an idol. So next, hang on, I have to keep getting my notes. They're so well organized. Then what happens is in verse 4 we see, he took this from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made it into a molten calf. Still not sure why they picked the cow. I'm sure there's a reason. Bible scholars out there, you could look that one up and message me. And they said, this is your God, Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. No, it wasn't. It was a pillar. It was a pillar or a cloud by day, and it was a pillar of fire by night, and it was the Spirit of the living God, and he had them walk through the Red Sea, and it was not a cow statue. I just don't understand that at all. And you know what's going to happen when you get an idol in your life? You're going to believe a lot of dumb stuff. You really are. And you're going to think all of those wonderful good things that God has given you and done for you and you should be grateful for, you're going to attribute it to the idol that you made from yourself. You're going to say, I did it. I brought myself through this. I saw myself through that. And you're not going to give God any credit, and you're not going to see truth. And you know what happens when you lose truth? You lose all truth. Okay? When you lose the ability to see God for who he is and what he has done, you lose the ability to reason completely, because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. You don't have any of that without him. And when you lose a little bit, you lose it all. So, pretty scary stuff. I mean, a cow statue, and it brought them out of the land of Egypt? No, it didn't. Come on. That's just crazy. Then if you look at verse 5, now when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. Okay, it corrupts your worship. Idolatry will corrupt your worship. You will say, well, this is for the Lord. Honestly, it's for the Lord. It's not for the Lord. You're not doing it for the Lord. Okay? Because here's the thing about worshiping God. You have to do it his way. You can't go about it your own way. He doesn't want it. He doesn't accept it. It's corrupted. And he doesn't react well to it, as we will see. Before I get to that, we'll go to in verse 6. It says, so the next day they rose early and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. Okay, so here's the thing. If you want to know if your worship is corrupted of God, thinking, have I lost truth? Am I worshiping an idol and not God? Have I corrupted this that I'm saying it's God, but really it's not? What is your behavior telling you? Because if they got up and they played, their goal in life was to satisfy their own needs. They were the spotlight of their life. If you are the shining star and all you can think about are your needs and your problems and what you want and what you don't have and what you should have, you have a problem. You're not worshiping God. You're worshiping yourself. You know, if you're putting others before yourself, if you're thinking about their needs, if you're grateful for the things you do have, then your worship is probably okay. Because we don't really do that naturally. I mean, we kind of say we do, but that's a big fat lie. Nobody does that naturally. Except for Jacinda King. But I believe that's the Lord in her. Oh my word. For real. Gonna have to tag her now. Okay. No, but really, if you met her, you know. For real. I sound like I'm joking, but she's the sweetest. Okay. So, God sees God's reaction. Let's check that out. It's freaky. Okay. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Go down at once, for your people, whom you brought up from the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have quickly turned aside from the way which I commanded them. They have made for themselves a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed to it, and said, 'This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt.' The Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and behold, they are an obstinate people. Now then, let me alone, that my anger may burn against them, and that I may destroy them, and will make of you a great nation.'" Okay, so here's the thing. Number one, God sees our stubbornness. We kind of don't see our stubbornness. Honestly, if you wonder how stubborn you are, ask the people around you, because you're probably more stubborn than you realize. But you can't fool God. And sometimes we're kind of like, I know I'm stubborn because I secretly think it's a strength. But the truth is, it's a terrible, terrible way to be. And I say this as, ask my mother, the worst, most stubborn of her children in the history of the world. The only reason that, honestly, I look at that and I look at the ministry that when I went to France and was able to be an encourager, at least I hope I was, to the people over there, one of the things that I was able to do to encourage someone there was to tell my very, very dear, dear, dear friend, Christina, that her son Benjamin was not more stubborn than I was, and my mother survived. So that, I hope, was an encouragement to her. Sweetest little boy in the whole world. I guess he's not little anymore, but he just sweet, sweet, sweet boy. I thought he was going to drive his mother crazy. That woman has more patience than you have no idea. So, and she got it the hard way. God gave it to her through a lot of trials. And one of them was the stubbornness of one of her own children. And God sees our stubbornness. It's not good. It's not pleasant. It's not easy for him, and he doesn't like it. And it's not good. It makes us bad. It makes us do stupid things like worship cow statues. Or if nowadays you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's stupid. I think I'm going to worship something else, like my job, or my income, or my relationship, or the relationship I wish I had, or my body, or my prestige, my status, whatever it is that you're putting your trust in to bring happiness, completeness, peace into your life. It's not going to do it. Only God's going to do it. And that is your idol. And don't be stubborn. Be smart. Don't be stubborn. Be smart. Because God sees it and he's hurt. He is hurt because you've taken all the things you should have been grateful and thankful to him about, and you've turned it into trash. You've said, he didn't even do that for me. God didn't love me. God abandoned me when he sent his only son to die for you. How can you think that? And to all of you who have children, you know what that would mean. To not only to lose your own child, but to give your only begotten son. That's for us. People who would just say, he didn't do it for me. He didn't take me out of the land of Egypt. He didn't save me from my sins. He just abandoned me. He didn't do what I expected him to do when I expected him to do it. And now I'm hurt. And I'm going to turn to whatever thing I choose to believe will bring me peace and comfort. Don't be stubborn. Be smart. And so he's hurt and he's angry. And it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of an angry God. So God, he decides with the children of Israel, I'm just done with them. That's it. Punishment. And the worst thing that can ever happen to you, and I'm telling you, this last October, I watched my dad take his final breath. And I have seen no one more peaceful than that man in the days and the hours and the moments leading to the time that he saw his Savior. You just gotta understand that God is worth trusting and give him his due. Because you don't want him to be angry. You really don't. So finally, we see how a big, huge thing. Why does God not destroy the children of Israel? Why? Because he tells Moses, I'll just make a nation out of you. I will. I can do that. Then the Lord spoke to Moses. I'll skip to 10. Now then, let me alone, that my anger may burn against them, and that I may destroy them, and I will make of you a great nation. Then Moses entreated the Lord his God, and said, O Lord, why does your anger burn against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians speak, saying, with evil intent he brought them out to kill them in the mountains, and to destroy them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger, and change your mind about doing harm to your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by yourself, and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heavens, and all this land of which I have spoken I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So the Lord changed his mind. Okay, so here's the thing. There are two things that keep us from the insanely horrific punishment that happens when we turn away from serving God. And it's because, number one, God remembers his promises, and he keeps them. He does. He remembers his promises. Don't believe me? Look up at the sky the next time it rains and see that rainbow. It is in there because it is when God said, I'm going to put my bow in the sky so that you know I will never again destroy the world the way I have with this flood. It's never going to happen again. We never have to worry about that. And that rainbow is still there. It's still there to this day. We know God keeps his promises. And the second thing, God hears our prayers. When you pray, God hears you. He heard Moses. Moses entreated the Lord, and the Lord listened. Prayer is powerful, and it does some amazing, amazing things. However, that's not just other people praying for you. In order to get away from idolatry, we have to do more. And so Moses goes, he confronts Aaron first of all, which I totally get that. If it were my sibling in charge, I left in charge, and I came back and everybody was worshiping a statue, I'd probably freak out too and give them what for. And so he yells at Aaron first, rightfully so. Then, now when Moses saw that the people were out of control, for Aaron had let them get out of control to be a derision among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, Whoever is for the Lord, come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered together to him. Very cool, because you've heard of Levites, right? They're the people that take care of the temple later on. They're the only people who are allowed to carry the Ark of the Covenant, something special and sacred. It's because of this. The people of the tribe of Levi, in this moment, when they asked who is on the Lord's side, they said, we are. And God said, they are mine. And throughout the rest of the history of the children of Israel, God says, not the Levites. All these others are going to get this, this, and this, and this, but not the Levites, because the Levites are mine. The Levites belong to me. And it's very important because in that moment they said, we choose to be on the Lord's side. Okay? And you have a chance. You can have had many idols in your life, but you have a chance when that is called in your heart and you hear God saying, who's on the Lord's side? You can stand up and say, I'm on the Lord's side. I choose to serve the Lord today. And then what Moses tells them to do is, and this is in verse 29, dedicate yourselves to the Lord for today, for the Lord, for every man has been against his son and against his brother, in order that he may bestow a blessing upon you today. And what had happened was, earlier in verse 27, he says, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, every man of you put his sword upon his thigh, and go back and forth from gate to gate in the camp, and kill every man his brother, and every man his friend, and every man his neighbor. And it goes on to say that 3,000 men died that day. So here's the thing. The cost of idolatry, it just grows. It just gets exponentially worse. It started with jewelry and it ended up with 3,000 dead people. But the biggest thing here is when you say, I am on the Lord's side, understand that you belong to God and you will be his warrior. Okay? And you're going to have to grab that sword. Word of God. I mean, come on. We all know it. Swords are always a picture of the Word of God. We know that. Ephesians 6. Anyway, you got to take up your sword and you have to fight. And listen, it's not easy. It's going to be hard. It is going to test you in the worst ways. And you're going to have to be willing to fight everything that you've ever known. You're going to have to fight like you've never fought before. But you stand up and you say, I am on the Lord's side. Here's the thing. Moses goes in and he asks God to forgive the people. And God tells Moses something pretty important. Because Moses says, if you can't forgive them, then just take my name out of the book of life. He was willing to give up his soul for all of Israel. And God said, I can't do that. The people who don't believe in me, the people who don't trust me, the people who choose the idols, their name is blotted out of the book of life. I can't do that. I can't trade you. You know, this is another way that Moses was like Christ, because Christ came and he took our place. He was actually able to take our place. Moses wasn't, but Jesus did take our place on the cross. And it's interesting, he says, what God says, behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I will punish them for their sin. And here's the thing. He does punish for our sins. There's a high cost for turning away from God. But the biggest punishment of all, because I just read about recently about somebody being really upset because there's an idea that God allows hell and stuff. Here's the thing. God does punish, and he has punished, but he punished his son. The wrath of God rested on the cross. And the day that he punished was the day that darkness settled on the earth. It was the day that Jesus cried out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That's when God punished us. And he punished in the worst and most horrible way. And Jesus, he died. And he went to the throne room of God, the true throne room in heaven. And he gave his blood on the mercy seat. His real blood on the real mercy seat. Not the picture of it that's in the tabernacle. So you see, that's what idolatry does. Idolatry ruins your life. And it nails Jesus to the cross. Here's the thing. God loves us so much. And he's given us so much. It's important to understand He's not out there to get you. He's not out there to ruin your life. He's not out to control you like a puppet master. He is out there to love you and do everything in His power, which is a lot of power, to bring you closer to Him. You may wonder why I'm doing all this video here, and the biggest thing is there were a lot of lessons that God taught me through my dad, and I'm going to share them. So as you go throughout your day, take a moment now and stop and pray and ask God, what idol do I have? What expectation did I fail to trust you with? What kind of cost is this taking in my life? Have I lost truth? Is my worship corrupted? Am I playing in my life instead of living the way you want me to? Because He sees your stubbornness, and He is hurt, and He is angry. But He remembers His promises, and He hears our prayers. So stand up today and say, I'm on the Lord's side.